This class looks at leadership and more specifically trait theory. So, trait theory, this proposes the idea that people are born with inherited traits. So we receive these genetically, and when we're born we have certain traits. The trait theory of leadership is based on specific characteristics of many leaders. So really what it's trying to do here is to look at many leaders and try to work out what their traits or characteristics were and see if there are some that are more important than others. So try to find out what are the key characteristics of leaders. This method is mainly considered when predicting leadership effectiveness. Clearly, if we could identify what it is that makes a leader in terms of the human characteristics that are best suited to leadership, then we could predict leadership by looking at perhaps children, looking at their characteristics, looking at who becomes a leader within school or within college, and who will then more than likely, go on to become business leaders or political leaders or whatever in the future. So the idea is to try and isolate out what are the key characteristics, the key traits, and then try to predict leadership from that. So let's look at the traits. Well, traits, it involves adapting to changing situations. So some people can adapt quickly, others find it difficult to make changes, and others get stuck in a routine and are happy with what they've got or the present situation. Others want to adapt to change more quickly. Some engage with the social environment and the activities, and that means that leaders are outward looking. They're not entirely focused on the internal organization of the business or the internal issues of the business. They're looking at the outside and looking for new ideas, perhaps to adapt and bring them into the business. Generally, a trait of leadership is ambition. They aim to achieve high, and they're also full of self-confidence. So these are also traits or characteristics of leaders. So another one could be assertiveness, being able to put forward an argument cogently, put forward the argument so that those who receive the argument, receive the point, are convinced by it. It's assertive, it is asserting the situation, it is being quite forceful in its impact. And because it is, more than likely it will be followed, and more than likely that person who issued the statement in the first place will be the leader. Leaders can be cooperative, they can get along, they can agree to certain things, and they can collaborate within the groups, and so there's also an element of cooperative behavior. They agree to work together. They're certainly decisive because they make decisions and they can cut away processes or ideas that are not relevant, or perhaps not as relevant as other ones. So they're able to focus in on what is needed immediately. So they are certainly decisive. They're also dependable. They seem to like the idea of being the leader, and they are therefore more engaged in the work process, in the organization, and they are working for the organization. They are dependable. When something goes wrong, they will be there trying to fix it. They are dependable people. So it has the ability to nominate and nominate people for particular situations, nominate what needs to be done, and it can also take responsibility for their actions. So leaders have that characteristic. They will take responsibility. If it goes wrong, they will put their hands up and say, sorry, it was my fault. If it goes right, they can bask in the glory. They tend to have lots of energy. They tend to be people who are active. They tend to want to do things. They're looking into the future all the time. They're looking forward and trying to lead the organisation to meet its objectives, to meet its strategy, and lead it forward. And to do that, they have lots of energy and lots of enthusiasm for what they're attempting to do. And to stick with what they're trying to do. They're persistent. They argue for what they want, and they're not going to move from that. They will continue to argue the point and continue to try and wear down the others, the other people perhaps who are opposing it, and they will be persistent in their pursuit of the target or the goal that they've set. Stress doesn't worry them too much. They seem to be tolerant towards stress. They seem to live with it and cope with it. A lot of people might find it difficult working in a highly pressurized environment, but leaders might have the characteristic, that trait that enables them to deal with this. Now, Stockdale outlined some traits and skills necessary to identify a leader. They must be intelligent. But clearly, if you're going to be the leader, I guess it almost goes without saying that they must have intelligence, because they must inspire confidence in others, and they must know exactly what they're doing and be able to make decisions, and they must have a vision, and all of these are, if you like, also characteristics of intelligence. They're indicative of an intelligent person. They also tend to be creative, and they know what the ideas that the organisation want to fulfill. They know what the strategy is. They know roughly where the business wants to be. But they're creative in bringing about the solution to get the organisation to the final goal, get them onto the path that they want to be on. And they're creative in doing that. They can think in ways that perhaps others can't. They can solve problems in ways that perhaps others would find difficult. And it means that they are adept at thinking like this. They're conceptually skilled. They're conceptually equipped to make the decisions and to inspire people and to follow the goal to the end. So conceptually, they have the ability. It's the intelligence thing again. They're obviously literate and able to communicate fluently in writing and speaking and addressing issues and speaking off the cuff and being able to communicate effectively. And they know what they're talking about. Not just the business, not just the process or the production process or the routine within the department or within the business, within the organisation. They're also knowledgeable in a wider sense. They know what's happening in the environment, the social environment. They know what's happening politically. They know what the pressures from the politicians will be and what's likely to be enacted in law and how it's going to impact on the business. They're knowledgeable. They know what the constraints are. And they're inquisitive. They're always looking for what is out there and new ideas. It goes back to the creative thing, that the second point that I mentioned earlier. they're organized. This organization is not a part of being a good leader. They're able to marshal their resources in a way that furthers their leadership. They're able to make the arguments, they're able to make the points, and they're able to prove what they're saying. And they're organized in order to do that. They know what the resources are, they know where the documentation is, they know how the computer system works. They're organized. They know about this. And they're able to persuade people. They're able to persuade people that they know. They're knowledgeable. They have got good communication skills. They're able to speak and write clearly. They're conceptually skilled. They're creative. They're intelligent. That all leads to this power they've got to persuade people to come with them on this journey to the final goal, the strategic objective. So they are persuasive people. And they've got social skills. They know how to deal with people. People are human, and they know what human beings are like. Human beings can make mistakes. They can say silly things. They can behave in strange ways. They get depressed. They get elated. They're happy. They're funny. They work hard. They have breaks. So the leaders are able to incorporate all of these variety of behavioral patterns, and they're able to deal with it. They're able to manage those. Now, let's look at McCall and Lombardo. This is quite a famous sort of little typology in the way we look at the leader. They're emotionally stable. They don't have ups and downs. They're able to handle their private life, their social life, their work life. They're able to do this seamlessly. They don't take problems from home to work and then jeopardize work because of home issues or social issues or whatever. So they're emotionally quite stable. They admit their mistakes. When they get it wrong, they put their hands up and say sorry. But they learn from this experience, and they incorporate what they've learned into the next routine, the next set of processes, and to try to routinize those processes so that the mistakes are not going to be reproduced. So, yeah, they admit to mistakes. As I said earlier, in the previous few slides, they've got good interpersonal skills. They're able to deal with people effectively. And they have intellectual ability. We've already dealt with that one, but there it is again in a different paper. They're confident intellectually. They know what the business is. They know what the production processes are. They know how the departments work. They know what's efficient and what's not efficient. They know where the business wants to be strategically. And they're able to deal with this, and they're able to communicate. They have the intellectual capacity to handle this. Now, the strengths of trait theory. Well, it can be tested. It is possible to say, well, here's a set of characteristics that the business must have. The leader must have in order to make the business successful. So here's a set of characteristics. If that was universally agreed, then we could test all business leaders against that list of characteristics. So it can be tested. It could be accepted or rejected in specific cases. That's if such a list existed. It's very simple to understand. We often have this idea that we are made from what we call nature and nurture. Nature is what we received. We received from our parents. It's the genetics we received from our grandparents or our I think predominantly people believe it's from our grandparents. So it's those characteristics we've got. But we also, of course, are nurtured through life, through school, through our experiences, and we're made from those as well. So if the nature bit, the nature aspect of our personalities predominate, if that is the most important part, then presumably you could list the characteristics of a leader and say these characteristics apply in all cases of good leadership. So it's tested. And it's simple for us to understand that. The weaknesses of the theory, well, the list of traits is very long. I just gave you a couple of slides worth of characteristics, intelligence and so on. But some people have listed out long lists of traits and said, look, there's 100 traits. Well, to test people against 100 traits is very, very difficult, if possible. So identifying the traits is not that easy. Presumably what we would have to do is to prioritize or rank the traits and say these ones are the most important and these ones are least important of this long list. But difficult. And physical traits are not that necessarily that important in the business world. In the business world, we're more perhaps inclined to value skills, engineering skills, accountancy skills, HR skills, marketing skills. Physical characteristics are not necessarily that important. Implications of the trait theory. Well, it provides an insight into our understanding of leadership. Sure, it gives us something to talk about, and it identifies words that we consider to be important: creativity, intelligence, persuasiveness, and so on. And we all agree that these are important in the context of leadership. So it does give us a list. It's applicable in all organizations. We can imagine looking for traits in any organization. It doesn't have to be commercial. It could be governmental, or it could be a charity, or it could be a service of some sort. So we can imagine it applying in a wide range of areas. And I suppose managers could use it to assess their performance and make necessary changes. If the managers believed that certain traits were important, they could monitor their ability to make changes or to manage in the context of those traits. So it's an interesting approach to leadership. It's trying to identify what are the innate characteristics of people who are leaders, trying to itemize those characteristics, and then trying to generalize it so that we can say that all leaders have these characteristics. In fact, all the research that's been done has not borne any of this out. It's a lovely set of ideas, and it gives us an insight because of the language it uses, but in practical terms it is very, very difficult to test, and the evidence that has been amassed over the years is very inconclusive. So it remains a theory. It remains something we can talk about and we can benefit from, because it takes us into discussing attributes that we know are important: persuasiveness, intelligence, creativity, and so on. But we should not necessarily believe that all leaders have those in some given proportion. Okay, so that's an oversight of trait theory. And I think that concludes our video. So thank you for watching.